He followed the warning stones, breadcrumbs leading into the dark heart of the forest. He knew how that fairy tale ended, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. With each step, the canopy grew thicker, strangling the afternoon sun until only a few scattered coins of light dappled the forest floor. The air grew cold. The usual symphony of the wild faded into a profound, unnerving silence. He pushed through a final curtain of skeletal branches, and his breath caught in his chest. The forest opened into a clearing that had no right to exist. It wasn't a ruin, not at first glance. It was a monolith. A single impossible column of smooth, black basalt rose from the earth like a splinter of midnight made solid. It climbed 200 feet into the canopy, perfectly cylindrical, perfectly seamless. No windows, no doors, no marks of construction. It seemed to have grown rather than been built, a massive tree of stone that had erupted from the earth in a single, violent moment. The monolith devoured the light, creating a void in the day. Staring at it made his eyes water, his brain recoiling from the sheer impossibility of it. This was a tombstone for an entire civilization, and he was the first person to read its epitaph in 1,000 years. He had found Xylos. But the triumph he expected, that surge of academic victory, it never came. In its place, a cold, absolute dread settled into his bones like winter frost, because around the base of the monolith were bones, human bones. They weren't scattered randomly. They were arranged, a perfect circle of skeletons all facing outward, their postures frozen in a desperate attempt to flee. Some were missing arms. Others had their rib cages shattered. The bones snapped outward, as if something had reached inside and ripped their spines out through their chests. Several skulls were split cleanly down the middle, the bones scarred with deep parallel gouges. Claw marks. He stood at the edge of this gruesome circle, his scientific mind warring with a primal instinct that screamed at him to run. This wasn't a mass grave. This was a display, a meticulously tended garden of death. With shaking hands, he forced himself to do his job. He pulled out his camera, documenting everything. The monolith, the bones, the ruins that spread out from this central point in concentric rings. As he worked, a new sense of unease crept in. The geometry of the place was wrong. Streets that should have been parallel converged at impossible angles. Right angles bent subtly, creating intersections that made him nauseous just to look at. This city was built on principles of mathematics that defied everything he knew, a geometry that felt alien and hostile. He found more skeletons as he ventured further. Some formed lines leading away from the monolith, as if they'd been trying to escape in an orderly fashion before being struck down and placed exactly where they fell. He saw one skeleton fused to the base of a tree, its bony arms wrapped around the trunk in a final futile embrace. Deep gouges scarred the bark, showing where something immense had tried to pry it loose. The sun began to bleed out behind the mountains, and the monolith's shadow fell over him like a burial shroud. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees in an instant. The air grew sharp and thin, and it was then, in the dying light, that he finally saw them. Carvings, etched into the base of the monolith, almost invisible against the black stone. They weren't writing. They were images, a star chart, but of a sky he didn't recognize. And below it, figures. Tall, slender figures with too many joints in their limbs, bowing down to something descending from those alien stars. A sound broke the silence, a low, grinding noise, like stone on stone coming from high above him. It wasn't the wind. It was coming from inside the monolith. His heart hammered against his ribs. He looked up, his camera forgotten, his scientific detachment shattered. He was no longer an explorer. He was prey. The grinding grew louder, closer. It was a sound of immense weight shifting, of something ancient and vast beginning to stir from a long, long slumber. He didn't wait to see what it was. He turned and ran. He fled through the twisted non-Euclidean streets, the city itself feeling like a trap designed to confuse and ensnare. He didn't look back. The grinding sound echoed behind him, a slow, deliberate pursuit that promised a fate worse than anything he could imagine. The forest, once a place of intimidating silence, was now his only sanctuary. He crashed through the undergrowth, the warning stones he had so eagerly followed now markers on a path to a place man was never meant to find. The legend of Xylos was real, but the stories never mentioned what was left behind, waiting. And now, it was awake.